The night my mother showed up at my door with my sister and a suitcase, I knew something was about to break, and it wasn't just my lease. The faint scent of lemon polish, a ghost from my last cleaning spree, still clung to the air when the insistent rap hammered on my door. 3 sharp knocks, then a pause, then 2 more, a rhythm I knew too well. My stomach tightened. It wasn't the delivery driver. It wasn't my friend, Sarah, checking in. My parents owned this 2-bedroom apartment, the one I'd meticulously transformed from a forgotten storage unit into a sanctuary, a place I paid them rent for every month without fail. Now, the knocking meant trouble, the kind that wore a familiar face. I pulled open the door. My mother stood there, a forced smile stretched across her lips. Her eyes, usually so warm, now held a glint of something I couldn't quite place. Pity? Triumph? Beside her, my sister, Chloe, stood slumped, a duffel bag slung over one shoulder, a large, battered suitcase at her feet. Her normally vibrant red hair, usually a wild halo, was flat, dull, mirroring her expression. She wouldn't meet my gaze. Surprise! My mother's voice chirped, a little too loud for the quiet hallway. Chloe's moving in. The words hung in the air, heavy and solid, like a brick wall slamming down. My breath hitched. Moving in? Here? My sanctuary? The apartment I paid for, the one I'd poured my meager savings into, painting walls, buying furniture, making it mine after years of sharing a cramped house with a family that often felt too big, too loud? What are you talking about? My voice came out thin, reedy, barely a whisper. I looked from my mother to Chloe, who was now staring at her worn sneakers, a faint blush creeping up her neck. My mother stepped past me, her floral-scented perfume instantly dominating the lemon. Well, darling, Chloe lost her job, you know. The one at the bookstore? The owner decided to sell. And her apartment, it was just too expensive now, wasn't it, sweetie? She patted Chloe's arm, a gesture that felt less like comfort and more like a claim. Chloe mumbled something, a sound like a trapped fly. She still hadn't looked at me. So, my mother continued, turning back to me, her smile unwavering. I told her, why pay rent when you have family? And since you have the spare room, it's just perfect. We'll save so much money, and she can get back on her feet. She gestured around my living room, her eyes sweeping over the pale gray walls I'd painted, the soft rug I'd saved for, the small collection of plants thriving in the sunlight streaming through the window. It felt like her gaze was assessing, not admiring. My mind raced, a frantic hamster on a wheel. The spare room. It wasn't a spare room. It was my office. My quiet space. The place where I freelanced late into the night, where I kept my books, my art supplies, my sanity. It was barely big enough for a twin bed, let alone a permanent resident with a lifetime of accumulated belongings. Mom, I began, trying to keep my voice even, this isn't a spare room. It's my office. And I pay you rent for this apartment. This is my place. The words felt weak, even to my own ears, against the tidal wave of her assumption. My mother waved a dismissive hand. Oh, Ashley, don't be dramatic. It's a room with a door, isn't it? You can put your little art things in the living room. Or the closet. Chloe needs a place to live. Family helps family. Her tone shifted, becoming saccharine, edged with a hint of steel. And besides, we own the apartment. We're just letting you live here, dear. It's not really yours. The casual cruelty of her words struck me like a physical blow. Not mine. All the effort, all the money, all the sacrifices I'd made to create this independent life, dismissed with a flick of her wrist. I stared at her, my jaw tight. The apartment wasn't a gift. It was a rental agreement, a business transaction, one I'd honored diligently for 3 years. I signed a lease, Mom. I pay you every month. On time. My voice was barely audible. A family lease, dear. A flexible one, she chuckled, a sound that grated on my nerves. Now, help Chloe with her bags. She's tired. It's been a long day for her. She gave Chloe a small push forward. Chloe finally lifted her head, her eyes red-rimmed. Ash, I really don't have anywhere else to go. Mom said it was okay. Her voice was small, almost apologetic, but I saw the flicker of desperation, the plea for me to just roll over and accept it. I looked at my sister, my younger sister, who had always been the golden child, the one who effortlessly charmed everyone, while I was the quiet, responsible one. She'd always struggled, flitting from job to job, relationship to relationship, leaving a trail of minor disasters in her wake. And now, I was expected to clean up the biggest one yet. Chloe, we haven't even talked about this. This is my home. My private space. The words felt like sand in my mouth. Well, it'll be our home now, my mother interjected, her voice firm, leaving no room for argument. She walked past Chloe, heading straight for the small office, pulling open the door. See? Plenty of room for a bed. We'll just move your desk out. Where do you want it, Ashley? The kitchen? My kitchen was tiny, a galley space barely large enough for me and my morning coffee. The idea of my desk, my workspace, crammed next to the stove, filled me with a cold dread. This wasn't just about a room. This was about boundaries, about respect, about my entire life being uprooted without a single conversation. Mom, stop, I said, my voice gaining strength, a tremor of fury running through it. You can't just decide this. This is my apartment. My rules. My mother turned, her face hardening. Ashley, don't take that tone with me. I am your mother. And this is my property. We are doing Chloe a favor, and you will help your sister. That's what family does. Her eyes narrowed. Unless you want to find somewhere else to live? Because if you're not willing to help, I'm sure Chloe would be happy to take over the whole apartment. She's unemployed, after all. She needs the space more than you do right now. The threat hung in the air, stark and undeniable. Eviction. From the apartment I paid for, the one I'd built a life in. Because I wouldn't sacrifice my space, my sanity, for my sister's convenience. My own mother, threatening to make me homeless. Chloe shifted, her eyes darting between us, a flicker of something that looked like shame, but also relief, washing over her face. She knew. She knew what Mom was doing, and she was letting it happen. I closed my eyes for a brief moment, the world spinning. The lemon polish scent was long gone, replaced by the cloying sweetness of betrayal. I opened my eyes, looking at my mother's unyielding face, then at Chloe, who was now carefully avoiding my gaze again. There was no negotiation here. No discussion. Just an ultimatum delivered with a smile. Fine, I said, the word a bitter taste on my tongue. Fine. She can have the room. I turned on my heel, walking past them, past the duffel bag and suitcase, and into the tiny kitchen. I grabbed a glass, my hand shaking slightly, and filled it with water, chugging it down as if to wash away the sudden, overwhelming sense of defeat. My mother beamed. That's my girl. See, Chloe? Ashley's always been so sensible. I heard the scraping of the suitcase being dragged across the floor, the soft thud of the duffel bag. My office. My sanctuary. Invaded. The next few weeks were a blur of awkward silences and forced pleasantries. Chloe moved into what was now irrevocably her room, her belongings spilling out into the hallway, a constant reminder of her presence. My desk was folded up, leaning against the wall in the living room, gathering dust. My art supplies were relegated to a box under my bed. My quiet space was gone. Chloe tried to be helpful, at first. Do you need anything from the store, Ash, or I can do the dishes? But her efforts were half-hearted, usually followed by hours spent on her phone, scrolling through social media or watching videos, the sound bleeding through the thin walls. She made no real effort to find a new job, claiming the market was impossible and depressing. My mother, of course, echoed these sentiments, telling me, "Chloe just needs time to heal, dear." It was a terrible shock. My rent still came out of my account every month, on time, into my parents' account. Chloe paid nothing. My mother had made it clear that Chloe's contribution was emotional support and being family. One evening, I came home from my part-time job as a barista, the one that paid for this apartment, for my food, for my life, to find the kitchen smelling faintly of burnt toast. Chloe sat at the small table, scrolling on her phone, a half-eaten bowl of cereal beside her. The sink was piled high with dishes, a few days' worth, I estimated. "Hey," I said, trying to keep my voice neutral. "Everything okay?" She barely looked up. "Yeah, fine. Just chilling." I gestured to the dishes. "Are you going to get to those? They've been there a while." Chloe sighed, a theatrical puff of air. "Oh, right. Yeah, later. I was just about to watch this new show." "Chloe, come on. It's just basic courtesy. We live here together. You use them, you wash them." I knew I sounded like a nagging parent, but the frustration was bubbling up. She finally put her phone down, her eyes narrowing slightly. "Look, I'm going through a lot right now. I'm unemployed. I'm stressed. Can you just give me a break? It's just dishes." "It's not just dishes, Chloe. It's everything. You're not contributing. You're not looking for a job. You're just existing here, and I'm paying for everything, doing everything." My voice rose, the quiet anger finally breaking through. Her face crumpled, a familiar tactic. "Oh, so now I'm a burden? Is that what you're saying? After everything I'm going through? I thought you were supposed to be supportive." Before I could respond, my phone buzzed. It was my mother. I answered, already knowing what was coming. "Ashley, darling. Chloe just called me. Are you really yelling at her about dishes? She's so upset. She's been through so much, and you're just making it harder for her. You need to be more understanding. She's your sister, for heaven's sake." I closed my eyes, a wave of exhaustion washing over me. "Mom, she's not doing anything. She's not looking for a job, she's not helping out. I'm paying for everything, and she's just living here." "Well, she's looking. It's just hard right now. And you know, she's doing her best. She's been doing some research online. That takes time, Ashley. And you know, we're letting you live in our apartment for such a good price. It's not much to ask for you to be a little more accommodating to your sister. She's family." My mother's voice was firm, leaving no room for argument. The familiar guilt trip, delivered with precision. I hung up the phone, not bothering to say goodbye. Chloe was staring at me, her eyes wide, feigning innocence. "You called Mom?" I asked, my voice flat. She shrugged, a small, defiant gesture. "She just called to check on me. She knows I'm having a rough time." That was it. That was the moment I realized this wasn't just about a spare room or dishes. This was a pattern, a systemic enabling, a fundamental imbalance that had been woven into the fabric of our family for years. My mother would always take Chloe's side, always prioritize her over me, always demand that I sacrifice for the family, which invariably meant sacrificing for Chloe. The next morning, I woke up with a cold resolve. I showered, dressed, and made myself a strong coffee. Chloe was still asleep, the faint sounds of her phone notifications occasionally breaking the silence. I pulled up my laptop, not for freelancing, but for research. I spent hours online, looking up tenant rights, lease agreements, legal aid. The more I read, the clearer the situation became. My family lease was a verbal agreement. My payments were regular, documented. I had established residency. My parents, as landlords, had obligations. And I, as a tenant, had rights. I called Sarah, my best friend, who worked as a paralegal. "Sarah," I began, my voice tight, "I need your advice. It's about my apartment." I laid out the entire situation, the unexpected arrival, my mother's ultimatum, Chloe's lack of contribution, the constant parental interference. Sarah listened patiently, her occasional hums of understanding the only interruptions. "Okay, Ashley," she finally said, her voice calm and professional. "First, breathe. This is stressful, but you have more leverage than you think. Verbal leases are valid. Your regular payments prove the existence of a tenancy. Your parents can't just kick you out because they feel like it, especially not for this reason. They'd have to give you proper notice, and even then, if you've been a good tenant, it's not a guaranteed win for them." A sliver of hope, cool and refreshing, settled in my chest. "So, what do I do?" "You need to set boundaries. Clear, firm boundaries. And you need to document everything. Every payment, every interaction, every incident. If Chloe is causing issues, if she's not contributing, that's a problem for her, not for you to fix. And your parents can't use the apartment as a weapon to control you." "But what about Chloe? And my mom?" "They'll lose it. That's their reaction to manage, not yours. Your job is to protect yourself and your space. You've been paying for this. You've earned the right to peace in your own home." Armed with Sarah's advice and a newfound determination, I drafted a letter. It was polite, professional, and firm. I outlined my understanding of our verbal lease agreement, my consistent payment history, and my rights as a tenant. I stated that while I understood Chloe's situation, her living arrangements needed to be formalized. I proposed a written agreement. Chloe would contribute a set amount to rent and utilities, she would be responsible for her share of chores, and she would actively pursue employment. I also stated that if these terms were not met, I would be forced to seek alternative housing, but that I would expect compensation for the improvements I had made to the apartment and proper notice. I made sure to include a paragraph about my need for a designated workspace, requesting my office back or a significant reduction in rent to compensate for the loss of the second bedroom. I printed 2 copies. One for my parents, one for Chloe. I also kept a copy for myself, dated and signed. That evening, I waited for my mother to call, anticipating the explosion. It came right after dinner. "Ashley, what is this ridiculous letter? Are you serious? Demanding rent from your own sister? After everything we've done for you?" Her voice was shrill, laced with fury. "Mom, this is my home. I pay for it. Chloe needs to contribute if she's going to live here. This isn't a charity." I kept my voice calm, steady, despite the tremor in my hands. "It's family. You don't charge family. We're doing you a favor letting you live there at all." "No, Mom. I'm paying you rent. A fair market rate, I might add. And I've invested my own money into making this apartment livable. If Chloe wants to live here, she needs to contribute. Otherwise, she needs to find somewhere else. And if you don't agree, then I will find somewhere else, and we can discuss the compensation for my improvements." A stunned silence on the other end. My mother was not used to me standing my ground. "You wouldn't dare," she finally hissed, her voice low and dangerous. "Try me," I said, and hung up. The atmosphere in the apartment became a frozen tundra. Chloe avoided me entirely, retreating into her room, only emerging for food or the bathroom. My mother called daily, alternating between furious accusations and tearful pleas, but I held firm. I reiterated my position, calmly and consistently. I stopped doing Chloe's dishes. I stopped picking up after her. I made it clear that my boundaries were non-negotiable. A week passed. Then another. Chloe's room became a disaster zone. The dishes piled higher. My mother's calls grew more desperate. One afternoon, I came home to a different kind of silence. The apartment felt empty. I walked into the living room. Chloe's duffel bag and suitcase were gone. Her room, though still messy, was devoid of her personal items. My phone buzzed. It was my mother. "Ashley," she said, her voice strained, "Chloe's moved back home. She couldn't take it anymore. You made her feel so unwelcome. So unloved. I hope you're happy now." A profound wave of something washed over me. Not happiness, not exactly. More like a quiet peace. The weight, the constant low-level anxiety, the feeling of being constantly invaded, lifted. "I'm not happy that Chloe's struggling, Mom," I said, my voice softer now, but still firm. "But I am happy that my home is my own again. And I'm happy that I stood up for myself." My mother sighed, a long, suffering sound. "You've changed, Ashley. You've become so hard." "No, Mom," I said, looking around my now quiet, sunlit living room, the space that was truly mine again. "I haven't changed. I've just finally learned to protect myself." The line went dead. I walked into my office, the small room that had been Chloe's for too long. It was still messy, a few discarded tissues, some old clothes. But it was empty. My desk, folded and leaned against the living room wall, suddenly felt like a beacon. I walked over, unfolded it, and carried it back into the room. I retrieved my art supplies, my books, my quiet life, from under my bed. As I placed them back on my desk, arranging them just so, a sense of profound calm settled over me. The scent of lemon polish, faint but persistent, seemed to return, a promise of peace. I knew the family drama wouldn't magically disappear, but for the first time in a long time, I felt truly at home, and I understood that protecting my peace was not selfish, but an act of self-preservation. From that day forward, my sanctuary remained inviolate, a testament to the boundaries I had finally learned to build and defend.